Mars, the god of war, stationing retrograde in Leo, December 6th. Covert missions, an about face and direction, reversals of the heart's desires, opening old wounds, retreating from battle, unleashing repressed anger. These are just a few of the ways Mars stationing in Leo may express itself. Hello, my name is Eliane Nicole. I'm your astrologer and tarot reader, and in this video, I am going to talk about Mars, the planetary warrior, stationing direct in the sign of the Lion, and its journey appearing retrograde in Leo through January 6th, before it re-enters Cancer, still retrograde. But first, I want to say, if you're watching this video on Instagram, I'm only going to post the first 5 minutes here. The entire video will be available on my YouTube channel, Eliane Nicole. My YouTube channel is my name, Eliane Nicole. Please find me there. If you're watching this on YouTube, please make sure that you subscribe to my channel. Please hit the notification bell so you're notified every time I post a new video. Please like, please comment, please share. It helps me in the algorithm. It helps me grow my channel and my community and my business. And it puts me in a position to continue to give these free astrological offerings. If you're watching this on Instagram, please make sure that you're following astrology.tarot.Eliane Nicole. Please like, please comment, please share. It's free for you and very helpful to me. And now, without further ado, I am going to get into the translation of Mars retrograde in Leo. And first of all, I just want to say that Mars only goes retrograde every 2 years, unlike Mercury, who's also retrograde right now, Mercury goes retrograde like 3 or 4 times a year. So we're all very used to that, and it's very common, and it's not that big of a deal, maybe a little annoying and irritating at times. But Mars retrograde it holds more weight because it happens more rarely. And Mars also, the retrograde in Mars has a very different flavor than the retrograde in Mercury, because Mars deals with other topics than Mercury. So when we're talking about a Mars retrograde, we're looking at topics of, a lot of times it has to do with things like men, brothers, warriors, soldiers, athletes, police, military. Mars involves guns and knives. Mars can involve surgeries. Mars, it cuts, it scrapes, it has to do with heat and inflammation. Mars has to do with, rashes and acne. Mars is, so Mars cuts and scrapes and burns. And so these are just some of the qualities of Mars in general. In our personal lives, it's going to manifest differently than it manifests on the collective. But I want to try and touch on both in these videos. It actually seems that my numbers are higher on views when I talk more about the collective experience. When I work with clients one-on-one in readings, I obviously focus on their personal life and their personal astrology. But in these videos, I like to do a little bit of both, because it all relates, That's one of the things I love about astrology. It just shows us how connected we all are, because we're all living under the same sky, and we're all experiencing these same energetic currents, but processing them and interpreting them and translating them in different ways in our personal lives. But anyway, back to the translation of Mars retrograde in Leo. So this is a part of a much larger story that began with Mars in Cancer. And so this transit is not an island unto itself. And if you haven't already, I encourage you to watch my Mars in Cancer video, and to also watch my Mars into Leo video, because those two videos are going to provide more context about where we're going during this retrograde period that begins December 6th. Mars will only be retrograde in Leo December 6th to January 6th before it re-enters the retrograde into Cancer. And so for this video, I'm going to talk about this month mainly of Mars retrograde in the sign of Leo, because I feel like I need to break this apart into sections to make it digestible, because it's a lot going on. These are very spiritually, evolutionarily significant transits that are happening. You know, so in our personal lives, Mars deals with how he deals with our drive, how we go for our goals. What our Mars in our own personal charts shows like our desire nature and how we go for our desires, how we go for our goals, what our drive and motivation is. On a very mundane level, sometimes Mars has to do with cars and, you know, kind of more transportation. Mars is even our sex drive. Mars is also our competitive nature. You see Mars very strong in the charts of many athletes, warriors, soldiers, police, military people. But sometimes in your chart, by transit or even where it's placed in your natal chart, Mars can show your brothers or just your relationship to men or the masculine principle in general. And so there's always a spectrum with all of the planets and all of the signs and all of the transits. Everything is always on a spectrum. And we are all, you know, tuning into different frequencies of that spectrum, depending, again, on our own personal astrological coding and where we may be at any point in our lives, mentally, spiritually, and physically. But, you know, Mars in Leo, it's in a fire sign. And so when it's moving forward, it tends to be very bold and courageous and really like, you know, focused, laser focused on its goal and able to kind of just like ride towards it. But Mars stationing, and the station is when the planet appears to be the closest to the Earth or is the closest to the Earth. And by the way, astrologers know that planets in retrograde are not really moving backwards in the sky. Planets are continuing to move in the same direction. However, from the vantage point of Earth, because of the speeds that they are circling the sun, it appears that Mars is moving backwards, and that has a specific or a significant oracular meaning from a divinatory perspective. And so as Mars stations, it's closest to the Earth and we can feel it the strongest. So around December 6th, this can bring up Mars types issues, you know, conflicts, unleashing of repressed or suppressed anger, you know, pivotal turning points in the war. On the more mass scale, in our personal lives, this may be an about face and direction. This might be a change of heart, a change of desire. You know, this could be retreating from the direction or the goal that we were going in and deciding to go another way. In general, as Mars goes backwards, it's going to probably be more of a reflective period for a lot of people in terms of the direction that they want to go in the new year. It could be kind of like you were feeling like you wanted to go in one direction, and now you have to review and reflect on if that's the way you really want to go. And you may find yourself spending the rest of this year and even the beginning of next year kind of reviewing the past and to decide what the way forward really is for you. from December 6th to December 15th, both Mercury and Mars will be retrograde until Mercury goes direct on the 15th. So there is definitely a strong kind of reflective, reviewing, not moving forward, delays, postponements, cancellations happening in that December 6th to December 15th pocket. Mars in Leo can feel like burnout. It can feel like you're tired, like you don't have a lot of energy, especially if you are, if you're an Aries rising, if you're a Scorpio rising. This is going to be more of a personal transit to you because Mars is your planetary ruler. If you have a lot of planets in Scorpio or Aries, this is going to be more personal to you because Mars rules a lot of the planets in your chart. If you have any planets in the early fixed signs, Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, or Aquarius, this will be a more personal transit to you. And it can affect people in different areas of their lives. Some people might feel it in their actual body. Mars rules the muscles, and Mars also has to do with blood. Mars has to do with rashes or cuts or scrapes or burns. So for people who, have Aries and Scorpio on the first house or on the sixth house or even the fourth house, it could be a very body-oriented type of transit. It can feel like burnout. It can. But for others, like if it's on your second house, eighth house axis, it can be conflicts over money, finances, joint resources, settlements, inheritances, investments, loans, that kind of stuff. And there could be a time of, it's like Mars is going in one direction. It can be trying to figure out, there can be a conflict and trying to figure out conflict resolution around these topics. For some people, it will literally deal with their car, and it can bring up car troubles, car accidents, car conflicts around, cars, because Mars has to do with our drive, our personal drive, but sometimes it can be literally things that we drive. There's always a spectrum. There's always the most literal interpretation and then the more metaphorical or physical or figurative interpretations. If it's on your fourth house, it can have to do with your home, your parents, your family, real estate, bloodline, the homeland. If it's in your 10th house, it might have to do with your career or status or reputation. But there is a tone of whatever topic, Leo rules in your chart, there's a tone of there being some kind of conflict and conflict resolution that's hopefully going to come out of this in the larger story. But this might be a time of feeling embattled in a certain area of your life. And as Mars comes to the station, he is going to immediately form an opposition with, pretty immediately form an opposition with Venus, who is moving into Aquarius. And I will expand on this in my Venus and Aquarius video. But what I want to say about this is that this is very relational. Venus and Mars are the cosmic lovers. So this has to do with, tension, some kind of tension in love or romance or around art or beauty or justice. And Mars in Leo has opposing desires in many ways to Venus in Aquarius. And Venus in Aquarius is very, I didn't turn this off, which I usually do, and so it's beeping. So I just turned it off. So Venus in Aquarius, I'm going to do a whole entire video on, so stay tuned for that. But she's the goddess of love and beauty, and in Aquarius, she's in a more cerebral place. She is more conceptual, she's more detached. She is talking about an ideal vision and for the future. Mars in Leo has his own self-interest. He wants to shine. He wants to be the king. And so there is some push and pull between the cosmic lovers, which can translate into some kind of tug of war in romance or beauty or art, all of the things that Venus represents. And yeah, that's what I'll say about that now. I'll go into it more in my Venus and Aquarius video, so stay tuned for that. Also, as Mars stations to go retrograde, he is coming up on the opposition with Pluto. And so that is very significant. The first opposition with Pluto was November 3rd, 2024, 2 days before the election. And that was when Mars was at the 29th degree of Cancer, where he will be returning January 6th. And Pluto was at the 29th degree of Capricorn, the final degree of the old world. So when Pluto and Mars meet again, this time they will be in the Leo and Aquarius axis, which is the first time in our lifetimes that the Mars-Pluto opposition will be happening in Leo and Aquarius. And this opposition happens at the very beginning of the new year, but it's building through the whole end of 2024. And this is the Mars, the god of war, in Leo, retrograde, opposing Pluto, god of the underworld, at 0 degrees Aquarius, ground zero of the new world. And so this conflict, this tension that we are seeing building and arising is the beginning of a storyline that likely has a 20-year arc for humanity. And this has a lot to do with, I believe, the revolutionary impulse. Mars and Pluto oppositions can bring violence, brute force. It can bring, Pluto and Aquarius is ultimately about power to the people. Whereas Pluto and Capricorn had a lot more to do with patriarchy, top-down structures, and, materialism and greed and ambition and abuse of power. Pluto and Aquarius is more about power to the people and horizontal structures and humanitarian ideals, but Pluto always comes in and destroys in the beginning. He demolishes in the beginning. So this first Pluto-Mars opposition is it's an important transit to look at. I believe that we already see it building in the collective. If you look at what's going on with South Korea and how the people basically, stared down the barrel of the militia and backed them up off of the martial law. You see what's happening in France. There's the bubble ups, the percolation of revolution. Last time Pluto was in Aquarius was the French Revolution. In America, there was just assassination of a healthcare CEO who has denied, millions of Americans the health coverage they need. And so we can already see these themes of revolution starting to build. And I hope by saying this, I'm probably going to be squashed down in the algorithm. But I have to tell it like it is. I got to tell the astrology like it is. And these are themes that are coming up as Mars was slowing down to the station. And as soon as Mars stations and starts appearing to go retrograde, it will be heading towards that very confrontational, oppositional meeting with Pluto, god of the underworld. And so, you know, revolution is on the horizon, for sure. And, you know, we're going to be getting to know this Leo Aquarius axis very well over the next 2 decades. This is not a great time for celebrity. It's not a great time for celebrity culture. It's not a great time for the royals. Unfortunately, not a great time for comedians either. It's a tough era to be a child in. It's tough for children and teenagers. You know, these are all the things that Leo rules. And, you know, Pluto in Aquarius is very revolutionary. And it's about, you know, the tension between that axis is the rights of the individual versus what's best for the group. You know, it's about the kings and the queens versus the subjects. It's about the, you know, the CEO versus the people. Like it's, you know, and Pluto in Aquarius is going to violently demand that we do what's best for the group, whatever group that we're a part of. And we're all a part of many groups. That group may be your family, it may be your classroom, it may be your, you know, your racial group, it can be your neighborhood, it can be, you know, whatever groups or subcultures that we are a part of in life, which we are all a part of many. Pluto is going to violently, emphatically demand that we think in terms of what's best for the whole. And, you know, those who don't do that are going to find themselves in, you know, dangerous Plutonian situations. So the last time Pluto was in Aquarius, well, this is really a Mars video, but it's so related because of this very important aspect. But I've said this in my Pluto into Aquarius video, you know, 2 times ago when Pluto was in Aquarius was the American Revolution. The last time was the Civil War and the French Revolution, the slave revolt in Haiti, you know. So let's see, the last time Mars was in Leo retrograde was the end of December 2009 to the beginning of 2010. So if you were alive then, you can look at what was going on in your life then and see common themes coming back around. Oh yeah, Mars is going to be out of bounds too from December 30th until April 7th. So, you know, Mars will be out of bounds when it is in the opposition with Pluto. So, you know, things are going to get cray by the beginning of the new year. Cray in terms of war and then the revolution of the people, which is different than the wars that are going on. I don't mean to laugh, but I'm just like, this is what's on the cosmic calendar. So Mars will back into Cancer January 6th, and that's a different story. It's all related though. And so in our personal charts, you have to look at the houses that Mars and Cancer rule in your chart. And Mars is going to be bringing those topics together for you in life. We already experienced a bit of Mars in Cancer. Mars went into the pre-shadow of the retrograde October 5th. So, you know, the Mars in Cancer part has a lot more to do with family karma being activated, you know, family security and safety, homeland security and safety, you know, things of conflicts, or violence or tough situations around mothers, parents, families, homes. But I'm going to do a whole video on that closer to January 6th when it's moving into there. Meanwhile, I kind of just want to stick to the Mars and Leo portion. This is a hard video for me to do. Yeah, during Mars retrograde in Leo, it can be opening old wounds, old conflicts from the past could be coming up to be dealt with. Repressed or suppressed anger could be unleashed. Conversely, Mars going backwards can lead to depression for some people because it's anger more turned inwards. Donald Trump has Mars in Leo right on top of his ascendant. So he is a very Mars in Leo figure, very personally. So that opposition to Pluto can be very significant for him, that we're going to see at the beginning of the year. I do believe from his astrology that he is still in danger. He's still under threat. And he, you know, as we saw last year. So these are just things to look at for Mars in Leo. And I'm going to end this video now. If you're interested in knowing where Mars in Leo is moving through your chart, and then Mars in Cancer, because it's all part of a larger story, which, by the way, this story, you know, it keeps going through the spring. So it kind of began in October. It's a 6-month arc beginning in October, kind of going until April. And if you're interested in seeing where this is moving through your chart, especially if you're an Aries rising or a Scorpio rising, if you have any planets in the late degrees of the cardinal signs, any planets in the early degrees of the fixed signs, it's going to touch your personal life in some way. And so it's a great time to get a reading. I read on Zoom, so I can read for people anywhere in the country, anywhere in the world. I would love to read for you. We're also entering the holiday season, so it's a great time to buy somebody the gift of a reading. I make really cute gift certificates. And if you have any Sagittarius friends or Capricorn friends, it's their season, so it's a great birthday gift. And yeah, with the new year coming, this very exciting new year where the landscape is changing of all of our lives and of the world, there couldn't be a better time really to have a reading. It's interesting to look at life through the lens of a cosmic perspective. And again, I love reading, and I would love to read for you. But thank you for joining me on this video about Mars retrograde in Leo, and stay tuned. There's a lot of juicy astrology this weekend. I will be coming up next with a Venus entering Aquarius video, Neptune stationing in Pisces video. Lots going on in the cosmos, which means lots going on down here on planet Earth, because as above, so below, as within, so without. Thank you for joining me.